An abuse case involving an Indonesian worker, which made the headlines around the world.
Thousands of foreign domestic workers have taken to the streets of Hong Kong.
It is a case that has drawn international attention.
This is a really, really disappointing story.
Late last year, news broke that a young Hong Kong maid was brutally tortured by her employer. Ariana Sulistenitsi was abandoned at Hong Kong's international airport after 8 months of severe mistreatment. She was hardly able to walk, nearly blind, and never paid for her services. Pictures of Ariana's burned and bruised body went viral, protests were held, and activists demanded answers.
The fact that people treat these migrant workers as a commodity.
And they really want to deny the rights and equality for foreign domestic workers.
Hong Kong police arrest a housewife of age 44. She is believed to be in connection with the Ariana case.
What is perhaps even more shocking is that while Ariana's case is extreme, it was by no means unique. Many of Hong Kong's more than 300,000 domestic workers are underpaid and suffer slave-like treatment at the hands of their employers. Incredibly, most of these abuse cases go unreported. But why is this happening here, in a wealthy, cosmopolitan city with a strong civil society and reputation for respecting human rights? Coconuts TV traveled to Hong Kong to find out. 1 in 8 households in Hong Kong employ a live-in maid or caregiver, and every Sunday, in the public spaces of downtown Hong Kong, tens of thousands of these women gather. It's their sole opportunity to relax with friends after a grueling work week.
What I see in my stories, and I have close to 300 stories about the lives and experiences of foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong, is how consistent the pattern is in terms of their experiences. How underpayment, for example, is, it's the rule, it's not the exception with Indonesian first-timers. People in Hong Kong would like to think that these stories that we hear about in the media, Ariana's case, for example, that's just an exceptional case and it's just one, and overall, domestic helpers are treated very well in Hong Kong. And I'm sorry, I'd have to say that is not true.
At least on the books, Hong Kong does have laws to protect migrant workers, but they often go unenforced. Moreover, Hong Kong's live-in law, which requires maids to live with their employers, creates a situation that makes exploitation easy.
Because there are 24 hours on call. If, for example, to finish all the chores would be sleeping at 12 midnight, and somebody comes in at like 2, 3 in the morning and is hungry, she can be awakened. It's unfair for her. She will say, this is unfair, but there is no ordinance that is being violated or policies being violated by the employer.
The vast majority of domestic helpers in Hong Kong are from the Philippines or Indonesia. We met with some of these women to hear their stories. Grace from the Philippines was illegally trafficked to China and underpaid for her work.
So, go to the airport, me alone, she only give me $200. Instead of my 21 days of working there in China, she just give me $200.
What happened, me and employer, I just keep quiet. Somebody asked me just keep quiet because I want to earn money for my family, because I want to send my father go to hospital, because always slap me, then slap me like this and push my hair, and always choke my this yeah.
For domestic workers who are exploited by their employers, there aren't many options for support, other than a handful of underfunded nonprofits. These organizations help workers navigate Hong Kong's bureaucratic red tape, like the infamous 2-week rule.
In Hong Kong, there are policies that are discriminatory to foreign domestic workers. The immigration came out with a 2-week rule policy, and that is simply saying if you come in as a foreign domestic worker, that means you have a valid contract, and if that contract is good for 2 years. Now, if that contract is terminated prematurely, then the visa of the domestic worker, that will be cut to 14 days. That's why it's called a 2-week rule.
So if a worker has a problem with an employer, they only have 2 weeks to find a new job or risk deportation. There are exceptions, though. If a worker has a case against their employer, they can stay through the trial. But there's a catch. They can't work.
The vast majority of abuse cases don't go anywhere because the helper who has been abused is sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. You know, if you report your employer's crimes against you, and you have a pending court case, you can't work for like 6-8 months at best, maybe more if the employer appeals the case. And most women would say, well, who's going to provide for my children while that happens?
A survey of more than 3,000 domestic workers showed that 58% of them reported suffering verbal abuse, 18% physical abuse, and 6% sexual abuse.
First 3 months, she slapped me with my cheek. Then she kicked me some. We pulled my hair, my ears. Then she pulled my hair. So she hit me the brush there. It's a big brush that I cry. So it's so painful.
Because even for the food, it's not enough for me. Or the sleeping also not enough. So I sleep maybe just 3 hours or 2 hours.
The reason that the Erwiana case got the media attention it did was because the evidence was there. You could see this young woman being extremely skinny. We were told that she weighed 50 kilos when she came to Hong Kong 8 months earlier. And she was down to 25 kilos, so she lost 25 kilos in 8 months. I mean, that means she has had very, very, very little food, which again is a common problem. Erwiana is by no means exceptional. Just today in my material, I've been looking at least 25 stories from women who were starved to death. I mean, in Asia's world city, we have migrant workers who are starving, who don't get enough to eat.
It's difficult to comprehend why so many Hong Kong employers treat their domestic helpers this way. Some say it's rooted in racism and point to recent examples in Hong Kong's school textbooks and mass media. Most recently, an ad featuring an actor in blackface playing a maid aired on Hong Kong TV.
唔該 Maria， 幫我整個餐蛋麵啊！
咩事啊？
咩事啊？
And if you have a darker skin, then you are in the lower part of the list for consideration for a job. Some of my friends who are local people would say it's simply that. We grew up thinking of those who are darker than us as inferior than us.
While racism may indeed be a factor in this pattern of abuse and exploitation, the true root of this problem is perhaps even simpler.
I think more than anything, this is about power. The fact that employers know that migrant workers need to be here. They cannot support their own families in the Philippines and in Indonesia. They don't have the means, they don't have the resources. That's why they're migrant workers. I think, again, if I look across the stories that I have, the one thing that employers use more than any other thing to demean their helpers is to refer to their poverty. You're just a poor helper. You know, you're poor. Go home to your poor, miserable country. And I think this is to remind domestic migrant workers of their vulnerability. They know, and the employers know, that they can't just leave. They can't just go home, because that means, you know, there's nobody to support the children.